And welcome aboard, everybody. It's Chris Landry here with the Landry Football Podcast for this Wednesday. Almost forgot the day, Wednesday, September 29th, as we are, believe it or not, wrapping up, close to wrapping up the month of September, getting into October weekend football. Where's the time gone? Lots to get to today. Look, we like to free flow a little bit on this show, the Landry Football Podcast. So I am going to um, do a few things, but as I always like to say, we like to get your participation into the show. I appreciate Woodshed King joining us, and that's where I'm going. Folks, I want you to light it up in the chat room today. Those of you that are getting notifications that we're on live, Jeff Parrott has joined in with his Who Dat Talk, and let's get you joined in. Going to take your questions. We can talk anything. Look, we can talk on all the shows. I do want to say this, that we do a lot of different shows. Um, the pro football show, the National College Football Show, the Scouts Eye on College and Pro Football. We do the conference shows, but we can talk about anything, even like the Pac-12 show and the Big 12 show today. We'll take questions outside just the realm of those two conferences. That's why we call it and beyond. But this is certainly, we go a lot of different directions, and we can do that on any show, but particularly today. Um, we get you some questions, get you some thoughts. We're going to get after it. I'm going to talk because I think it's such a big game. Every weekend has big games. Every weekend has important games. All games are important. As a coach, I can confess to that. That is true. Every game is important. If you don't take care of business in some innocuous game that you're supposed to win, it takes the big games and make them, well, less relevant, less important, right? All that's true. But there's a different feel to certain weekends, and I think this may have the most unique feel thus far this year. And I don't know that some games are a bit of a surprise on the calendar. Some are as expected. But we're going to get into the big college games, some NFL games. We're going to take a look at it. We're going to take a look around the league, and we're going to tell you about good friends at BetDSI. Man, I got to tell you, you need to check those folks out. Um, and I'll just give you a little tip here that if you are like live betting, BetDSI is where you can bet on every major sport throughout the entire game, every play, every minute. New members get a 100% bonus match using promo code Landry. So you want to go Landry, all caps Landry 100. It's more than double your money to start winning today. I'm going to tell you about my friends at BSDI during the show today. But I want to remind you a couple of things. I always like to do this. And look, I keep doing this. And until everybody out there joins us over at LandryFootball.com, we're really proud of what we're doing. We've got a lot of content, certainly podcasts and shows that you can get. But we take you inside the film room. We break down all these games for you in detail before they happen. And then we break down the games after it happens to give you the best feel for what the film room says about the key matchups. And so we encourage you to take advantage of the football season sale. Try it out for a month. Try it out for 3 months, 6 months. Try it out for a year. Whatever, you've got plenty of options. So check us out today. Sign up for the Landry Football Podcast channel. That way you can get this podcast sent to you. Twitch.tv/Chris Landry Football is where you want to go, and to make sure that you get notification about watching us live, like Tony has, like Kev has, like Woodshed King has, like Jeff Parrott has, like Kev Belargo. So we appreciate everybody joining us. We're going to get to your comments and integrate them into the show. But one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the big games, but I'm going to also talk about what it's like in a big game atmosphere to prepare for a game. What it's like, is there a little extra juice in your step when you play a big game? Um, how do you prepare? How do you deal with it? I think these things are so impressive. Um, so I think those things are maybe fun, and it may spur some other thoughts and comments that you might have. But I'll talk a little bit, and I'm going to get to you some of your questions in a second. So bring them on in the chat room. In a big weekend game, um, if you look at, again, the importance of being steady, the importance of being focused each and every week is always critical to your success as a team. One of the things that does happen when there is a big game atmosphere, when there's a moment, could be a couple of NFC West games this weekend in the NFL. Certainly Arkansas, Georgia takes on a different scope and tone than it did when I was talking potentially about it in August, both of those teams. Ole Miss, Alabama, we kind of thought this might be a big game. It's that and then some, particularly maybe how Alabama played against Florida and the assumption that all of a sudden it's going to be, whoa, watch this. It's going to be interesting. So none of the former Saban assistants have ever beaten them. So maybe this is for all that is brought in. It's hard to go through you got Cincinnati, beating Indiana. They can beat Notre Dame. And I know this is not a great Notre Dame team, but Cincinnati beating Notre Dame, big feather in their cap. Notre Dame, how many games on their schedule? There are teams that can beat them, but I think you know where I'm going. So there's different type of big game deals. You got rivalry weeks. I can't go through every scenario, but I do want to get into a little bit of a feel for. There's something about a big game atmosphere. It's something. Games are normally won in how you prepare. Playing in games are easy in that that's not the toughest part. The preparation's the toughest part. I always wanted my players to bring the energy in practice, to bring the focus in practice, to bring the details in practice and in meetings. Because it's how you prepare that is the ultimate carryover into the game. Oh, no, Chris, these guys, they're not practice players, they're gamers. Bull crap. Okay? Oh, just because if you're a veteran, you don't necessarily need to have a lot of physical reps in practice, but you better be prepared mentally. You better be engaged in preparation because how you prepare is how you play, my friend. Or you might win a game against a weaker opponent. In college, once you build a program, once you get to a level where you're getting better players, don't tell my friend Nick Saban this because this is rat poison. But most of the games, you're not going to lose. There's maybe the 2 or 3 games, depending on your circumstance, that is the difference. How are you going to respond in those games? Because you're going to, the result is all people care about. But as a coach, you can't control the result. You can control the preparation. You can control the details. That is going to create the result, good or bad. And then it's all relative to how your opponent handle those things as well. So in college, there's more of a big game feel. But I can tell you in the NFL, when I was working with the Browns and ironically working with the Oilers, there was a little bit of an extra pep in your step in Pittsburgh Steelers week because remember the Oilers were in the AFC Central along with the Browns. So It's a little bit more of that. You can almost feel it in practice. Things getting a little chippy. It must be Steeler week. There's something to that. And I think if you are teams that you're good and maybe you're playing in the division and you have a sense that this game might go a long way in determining, look, we've got a couple of games. We've got the Cardinals and the Rams and the Seahawks and the 49ers. We're not going to decide the NFC West this weekend. But boy, it's a feather in the cap of the winners. There's a little bit of a leg up for the two teams that win those games. And so you have that. In college, there's usually that big rivalry game or the big game that might make the difference, going to a big bowl game and the Modern Era going to the playoffs. And it's never one of these games that's a challenge to get your players' attention. It is usually the games that players come in for extra film work. They maybe come in for extra treatment. They come in not only a little bit earlier for meetings and practice, they come with a little more energy. What's important is to get them to focus, to not be so excited about the surroundings, because a lot of that excitement comes with what you experience as a fan, right? Oh man, I talk to my friends and people at work at the water cooler. We're talking about this, and if it's a home game, I'm going tailgating. What are you guys bringing? Where are you guys going to be? Maybe we'll meet up. Whatever. It's a social event. It's a big event. It's an exciting event, and there's a lot of things that lead up before the game, after the game, that are really not a part of the game, but are part of the game atmosphere. Well, players in college tend to feel the same thing. All the parents coming in, the cousins are coming in. I need extra tickets. It's a bigger game. It's all of those things create distractions that create energy, but sometimes the energy is fractured. So what you try to do in a big game atmosphere is to get in the NFL, it's playoff time. You get in the NFL, you have some big games, but it's usually the playoff games that generate need more tickets, more energy, more excitement, more people at the game, yada, 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 yada. College, it's the regular season games. That's the big game. It's Alabama, Ole Miss this week. Maybe Arkansas, their level of excitement going to Georgia. But I think those type of games, it's about getting you focused. Now, the more big games you play in, the more players get into a routine of how to handle it, how to get ticket requests and other things handled early in the week so that your focus could be on your preparation. You don't try any harder. You don't have a better game plan. Hey, look, the next 3 weeks, we're going to have a suck of a game plan. We're going to give a crap, but, we're going to get it ready for that week 4 when we play so-and-so. No. But usually that comes along with a big game. It's usually an opponent that maybe brings about some unique qualities that will require maybe an alteration in your, not how you prepare, but certain things that you work on, maybe certain things that you will bring out. But let me just say this. People often talk about, and I hear this a bunch, we'll save this play or save that play or do this or do that. Play calling, and I talked about this on last week's show. Play execution is key. What plays can you execute correctly? That's what's relevant. It doesn't matter that this is a great play and we think we can set it up and get them misaligned. Great. If you can't execute the damn thing, what use is it? So it's really important to prepare in advance in fall practice and everything. Prepare certain things that you might want to use. But how successful you are in executing that in practice will determine the likelihood of putting it into the game plan. Um, got a couple of questions that brought up, but I think um, somebody asked a question about, can you talk how it works for a coach during the week? How long does it take to install a game plan and such? It's a great question, Tony, and it's something I'm going to tie into. So let's just take college, okay? In the NFL, you just have to back it up a day because you know that the games are played on Sunday. I know they're Thursday night games and Monday night games, but you get games played on Sunday in the NFL. And then in college, yeah, you got some games on Thursday and some on Friday, but most of them are on Saturday. So let's just take the Saturday game, and you're going to know pretty much how the NFL works. But here's the way it works: you play on Saturday. On Sunday, you go through the film of the game the day before, and you go through your corrections. Every position coach, you go through that. So when you get together, you go over the corrections, and you go through a walkthrough. You go through to get the lactate acid that builds up, and so you do some of that. When you get into Monday and Monday meetings, Sunday night, after you get done with that and you meet with the players, the coaches stay extra late on Sunday night, begin the installation of the game plan for Monday's practice. And then on Monday's practice, you begin to install what you think is going to work, that you do well, that's going to fit going up against what they do. And you basically start with let's call it a big plate, a big menu. Yeah, let's call it a menu. Not a plate. Let's go a menu. Big old menu. Let's um, let's call it like poster size. I don't have one handy. Poster size type menu. You know what I'm talking about? Poster, bunch of stuff. You work through that in practice. You rep it. Look, there's a lot of things that you think may work. How well are you able to execute it in practice? By Monday, Tuesday, you go through similar things. On Monday night, Tuesday morning, you go over practice tape. What are we not doing well? What are we doing well? So as things go along, you begin to cross out. Look, these things work. They're good. They're going to work against this opponent, but we can't run it. We can't get this block right. If you're not going to be good at it, take it off. Do something that you can be successful with. And then, Tuesday, and you advance it and advance it. And there's certain days you work on red zone, certain days you work on third down specific. And, the base look 9-on-7, 7-on-7, you segment it so that you can work on individual things in a segmented portion before you get to team. And team obviously gives you a better look and better reps overall. But you've got to break it down in individual parts before you bring it all together, because it's tougher to correct individual things in team. It's better to correct them in the 9-on-7, 7-on-7, more specialized look. So as the week goes along, and as you start to take that poster size stuff, and all of a sudden it's about, it's a sheet, maybe a little bigger than this, but the play sheets that you'll have. And remember, when you see a play sheet that these coaches have, that's not filled with all the plays. What it is, it's a limited number of plays that you feel you can execute well against certain looks, but the plays are organized and are prioritized by situations. First down, second long, second short, second medium, third and short, third and long, third and medium, red zone, um, -20, midfield, you know, against this front, against this coverage. So this is based upon the entire week. This is what we've done best in these situations, and let's put them in the order. And if you notice, coaches will often look as the game progresses, things that are working are, let's say, things that you feel are good looks, you may make a note. We need to go back to that. No, we're not getting that type of look. We're just you make those adjustments. So it's an entire week of preparation, and it's an incremental process. It's a great question, Tony, and it goes in line to what I'm saying. When you have a big game, the tendency is to focus on the big picture and the big things. What you've got to do is focus on narrowing down the football part. That's what's important. That's what's relevant. The other stuff are only to be enjoyed if you execute and do those things correctly. And you, quite frankly, are not going to have a whole lot of fun if you don't prepare well, because if you don't prepare well, you're not going to play well. Look, I see this a lot of times is people will say, oh, but a bad week of practice if they play well. Look, a lot of times you make plays because you've got certain advantages, but you don't necessarily play well, but you still win. There are other times where, you look and you'll play pretty well. They're just better than you, the team you played. So I think that's really relevant to understand as you go forward. So the big game focus, whether it's playoffs in the NFL or big game in the regular season in the NFL and certainly in college, is about to get them to focus and to narrow down to all the external stuff. Now, the bigger challenge is when you're playing well and the guys think they got it figured out and you got to play a weak opponent. And they almost think like, yeah, we got it figured out. We got that, coach. That's where you get lax and you start to develop bad habits that, you know what, those bad habits against that weak opponent comes to bite you in the ass in a big game if you don't stay on top of it. I always said this all the time. And I noticed this a lot. And Parcells was like this. Parcells was the most miserable SOB after a win ever because he thought he had to bring you down. I mean, on coaches, on players, on everything. You're not that good, you get lucky. I mean, just whatever. And, but when you win, it's not the time, and it's just the opposite of fans thing. What are the fans? You'll win. Oh, you're great. Pats on the back and all that. When you lose, you suck. You didn't. I paid all this money to go. It's the exact. When you're a coach, when your team is struggling, that's when you got to pick them up. That's when you got to encourage them. I don't know if you've ever noticed, but you ever notice Saban on the sidelines when they're up and they're up by 40 points? Guy makes a mistake late in the game. He is chewing out butt like nobody's business because you're getting lazy. You're getting entitled. You're not playing hard. You're not taking serious. You're developing bad habits. Yet, if you notice when things are going bad on the sideline, what is he doing? Clapping them up. Let's go. Let's go. Let's pick it up. Okay. Look, we're fine. Overreact. I mean, you just do your job. Do what we told you to do. That, he's got a calming out. And I think that's the way you need to approach it. So big games, you got to want to calm the waters. Not so big games, you got to stir the water up a little bit to bring the emotion and the energy into it. I want to get into some of the big games. I want to go to the mailbag segment, but I want to tell you first about my good friends at BetDSL. They are a fascinating operation, and I'm encouraging everybody to check it out because I love them. If you're looking to place a bet on NFL, college football, BetDSI is an industry leader in football betting and the perfect sports book for both the novice and the professional bettor alike. At BetDSI, you can also enjoy live in-game betting. You can bet your favorite teams all game long, including props on nearly every play to the final whistles blown. NFL, college football, you love it this time of year, don't you? And you're going to love BetDSI.com. They have been paying winners for 20 years. 10,000 plus betting options daily on all the sports you love to watch. Live casino, daily fantasy, top rated on betting review sites. Use your sports and pop culture knowledge to make some extra cash this week. BetDSI has a very user-friendly interface and mobile site. BetDSI is the fastest payouts in the industry. Simply play, win, and get paid. BetDSI offers betting options for everything. I'm telling you, NFL, college football, the NBA coming around soon. So is the NHL, UFC, golf, all the major sports, politics, reality TV, exports, virtually everything. Try live betting at BetDSI, where you can bet on every major sport throughout the entire game, every play, every minute, every minute. New members get 100% bonus match using the promo code Landry100. That's all caps, folks. Landry 100. That's more than double your money to start winning today. I play there myself. Recommend BSDI if you want to add some excitement to the sport you love or any other sport you're watching. Once again, go to betdsi.com and use promo code Landry, all caps, 100, and get this limited time 100% bonus offer to make some extra cash on the sports you know and love. Use Bitcoin and get 100% deposit bonus on your first two deposits up to $2,000. It's only a game until you bet it at BetDSI. Love these folks. Appreciate these folks and what they are doing for us. It makes this show possible. So check them out today. That's betdsi.com. And again, remember the code capital Landry 100. Want to get into some of the big games, but I want to get into some of your questions, and we're eclectic with that. Again, appreciate Woodcheck King cheering us on 100 bits. Appreciate that. Jeff Parrott, good to see you again. Kev Belargo cheering us again, 100 bits. We appreciate that, man. We love you. Tony says he has a lot of questions. Good, bring it. A good friend, Rock, says the tragedy of Nebraska's loss at Michigan State is they're actually getting better. As bad as Frost can be, firing would be another retreat. So stay the course and get serious about the kicking teams. Agree. I agree, but let's see how they finish the year. Look, getting better in some areas, Rock. Yeah, they're playing better defensively, but they haven't gotten better on special teams. That's not, well, they're getting better if they wouldn't have those special teams. Well, that's, man, if it wouldn't be cold and snowing, it would be warm. Well, I mean, that's important. They're not getting that done. Um, I don't think it is a prudent move necessarily to make a move away from Scott. But look, I think it really depends on how they finish the season. And I'm not talking about the record. If they continue to get better. Look, it's one thing to say, we can solve our problems, fire the special teams coach. Correct? That's it. That's all we need. It's not all that. How do they emphasize it? Are they practicing it correctly? Do they put enough emphasis on it? Do they put the right people on the teams? Now, why is it taking so long? This is not a new problem. Are there other problems that are right around the corner that he's not noticing? I mean, I think there's bigger picture issues. And yes, I would be in favor of keeping Scott, but I think in terms of getting better, I think it's a little bit simplistic. I don't think they're getting that the rate of getting better is as much as maybe some people think. I do think they're getting better, though. I'd like to see more improvement, and I think that's going to determine how they perform and the sellability of selling him coming back. I think most people there want Scott. I think they all want Scott to be successful. I think they all believe in it, and I think most of them want to have a reason to bring him back. But that reason has to be more than, well, let's pull the upset here or there. I think it's how they play. You know, get a win against Northwestern. Well, that's great. Play well, because how you play well here will determine whether you can get a better win down the road or you blow this game away. So I'm with you. I understand it. Tony, we talked about how it works with the coach in game. Richard Sherman to the Bucks, Gordon to the Chiefs. Look, I think both additions are intriguing. I think Gordon could be a real positive. Sherman brings some stability. he's a very effective in zone coverage. I think he's very useful. I think Richard is a very instinctive player. I think he's very good playing with his eyes to the quarterback, very good in anticipating, and I think is breaking well on the ball. Look, you had some issues. Some people are, going to question and criticize it based upon, the off the field issue and all of that. But in terms of a football player, I still think he's got good football in him. I am assuming he's in pretty good shape still. Never could run great, but that's all the more important that he hadn't lost any explosiveness. We shall see. I think that it makes some sense, and it makes some sense for why he'd want to be there because it's a team that can win, and he wants to get there and win one and get there again. So it makes some sense there. There's some value there. Rock says Skylar Thompson is not likely to go. It makes a huge difference at Oklahoma State. Does Kansas State have any possible path against OU? Yeah, they do. Is it likely? No. There's a path for West Virginia. West Virginia had real chances. In the Big 12 show, I kind of broke down kind of the Kansas State's issues. And look, I think this game could be pretty close. If you're not scoring a lot of points, which Oklahoma is not, the game is likely to be a little bit closer. However, I do think that Oklahoma is better. I do think there is zero chance after losing to these guys twice that they're certainly not overlooking them. If anything, they're looking for payback. Now, I don't know. I don't think that Oklahoma's offense just suddenly explodes and it finds itself this week. But I do think there's some real attackable areas on this Kansas State defense, and we kind of talked a little bit about it today of what we saw last week on tape that I thought West Virginia was a little bit better at than Kansas State can be. I think that's the issue, and I do think the key to Kansas State's success against Oklahoma is that they've been able to play keep away. And without Skylar, it's going to be difficult for them to control the football and control the pace of the game without the quarterback and the run game. So, look, I mean, if you ask me who I think is going to win it, I think it'll be Oklahoma. But do I see a path? I do. I absolutely see a chance. I would say that. Tony asks to explain the role of Paul DePodesta has in the Browns front office. Paul is a football administrator that specializes in the role of understanding numbers and analytics as it creates results. And for those of you that have heard me discuss analytics have been around for a long time. We just never called it that. But analytics from numbers people as opposed to football people who break down tape are two different things. So here's what I think of analytics. I think it's fine to bring about some numbers that will tell you where your successes and failures have been from a strategical, maybe play calling, play design, scouting. Those things are useful, but they're useful to take into the film room and figure out why. See, the problem with numbers and analytics, it tells you what, it doesn't tell you why. Well, numbers people don't care why. They just say, well, the numbers say do this. Well, the numbers are the numbers as a result of a number of things. Apologize for that alliteration. But no, there's a reason why you're not running the ball well. There's a reason why you're throwing it very well. There's a reason why you're not rushing the passer. There's a reason why your red zone efficiency is not as good. You got to break that down. I think you've got to understand why you're not successful and how to fix it. Look, I'm trying to think of something that's analogous to, you got a car that breaks down. You got to identify what the problem is and you got to fix it. You can look at certain analytics that say after a certain amount of miles, this might happen or that might happen. But, you've got to look at it individually because everybody drives different maybe road surfaces, how often. I mean, those are things that you have to factor in. When in football, what I look for is not just, hey, we're really good at running the football in the red zone. Why? Well, how many games have you played? Who have you done it against? And I'm not just talking about how good the team is, but what's their front, what's their talent level. uh, you know, we were able to effectively block well against these 2, 3 fronts, but against these 2 or 3 fronts, we weren't as good. Well, the whole point is numbers tell you to do it the same way all the time because percentage wise, it's 60% effective. Well, overall, it's 60% effective, but it's maybe 25% effective against these fronts and maybe 85% effective against these fronts. So it's important to understand why. Okay, we're better at this against this type of front versus this type of personnel. And that gets you more of the details of why things work, why they don't work, what you should avoid, and what you should bring. So I think that bringing the analytics to the table to give football people something to think and make sure and to go back to the film room to verify is fine. I think making decisions on analytics is troublesome, but that's what numbers people do. Numbers people try to create a story with numbers. Well, they can create a story with numbers, but it's often the false story. But that's the role that he has for them. Let's see here. Jeff says, "What do you think happens to Manny Diaz if Miami loses tomorrow to Virginia?" Look, I don't know that they're prepared to buy him out. I think he's in trouble. I just look. I don't know that they make the decision during the season, Jeff. I don't. And again, it's kind of like, well, how do you think this team's going to be ranked if they win? How do they look doing it? So how do they prepare? So they lose to Virginia at home. Yeah, it's national stage. It's a Thursday night game, but how does it look? How bad is it? How do they lose it? I mean, I would think that he's going to make it through the season, but it really depends upon whether the team holds together, whether they continue to fight. I mean, you've been around this stuff. You know what I'm talking about. Look, I think they need to take a hard look at the program, but I, to me, I don't know what they expected out of Manny Diaz. I think he's a good kid. I think it was in over his head day one. And look, I say it all along. To me, the shame thing with a Clark Lee and a Shane Beamer, you can let it play out. You got to let it play out. But Manny Diaz that's where Miami slipped to, where that's the direction that they go. It's, guy that understands the program, believes in the program, likes the program. Yeah. I mean, he's just not skilled or experienced enough for that job. Yet, you've let the program slip enough to where an elite coach may not want that job. Um, in fact, I can tell you most will not. Not dissimilar to what Florida State's gone through, and I've talked about that. Well, I can't believe that to go to Memphis. They should have got a better coach than that. Like hell, you've let that program eroded to the point where it is not as attractive of a job. And they're lucky to get a Mike Norvell. And I don't know that Mike Norvell is the answer at Florida State. It's not looking good. Still early for him, but I don't know that the results are going to be any different a year from now. We'll see. I think they can be personally, but I feel less about it than I did before. But the reality is, like, okay, so Florida State and Miami is upgraded their facility. So people say, oh, that's a lazy take. No, no, no. You're missing the point. Yeah, the facilities are getting better, but you've been behind. So this whole period of trying to catch up is part of the reason why you're less and less relevant in the eyes of coaches and in the eyes of recruits, in the eyes of status. Kids today don't have a freaking clue that Miami was good. They're not reading record books about the U and hearing about the U. They're on their phone, on Facebook or TikTok or whatever. They don't know what the flip is going on. They don't care about that. They just wouldn't know as good now. And they've only known something maybe at the recruiting age, they've only had a lifespan of football for 5 years. So I don't know where they go. Look, I can tell you this. Look, there's always the thought, well, they'll go out and get Mario Cristobal. He'll come back home. I don't know that Mario Cristobal, who is a Miami guy, a Miami grad, and loves the place, I don't think he necessarily leaves Oregon to go to Miami. In fact, I doubt that he does. Maybe he does. I doubt it. Would Lane Kiffin leave Ole Miss to go there? I can tell you this. Lane would be phenomenal. Lane could make them the team to beat in that division or that conference. Imagine him getting that type of players. Now, you're not in the shadow of anybody there. I mean, that is a free path to competing and winning in that division of that league. You talk about ready-made to win, and you can sell. He's lived in Boca. He knows South Florida, the way he likes to recruit and sell players to go there. He'd be a great fit. Does he even want to go there? I don't know. He plays well. He pulls an upset over Nick Saban. I mean, he'll get a big newer deal at Ole Miss. Does he get Arch Manning to come there and starts to build something really good at Ole Miss? Does he? I don't know that. Certainly, he'd look at Miami, but when he looks at Miami, and you pull back the curtain, does he like what he sees? Does they have the budget, and can they do the things that even at a place like Ole Miss, which is not the elite program in the SEC, and no, they're not going to compete and win, division titles at Ole Miss. But the expectation level is not as high either. At Miami, they expect them to be the U and compete like the U, but they act like a Conference USA type program at times. They do support it. They put more money into it. I think Hard Rock Stadium's a nice stadium. It's not a campus field, but you know what? That's that. They've come out and debated the comments about what they're willing to put in the program. I think they're willing to put into it, but again, to this point, they haven't, and it's not been as attractive. So, what are they going to do to make that job more attractive? Can they take the money and say, look, we can put together the best staff, the deepest staff. We want to win. Lane Kiffin, Hugh Freeze, whoever, come and do it. I mean, they all will say that, but do you put the money where your mouth is? I don't know. What needs to happen for USC and Miami to be relevant programs? Again, the right coach. USC's fine. USC, the right coach, that thing turns around in a hurry. Miami's a little bit more complex. We just discussed that. I didn't even see that question, but I think, Jeffrey, I answered it in that. So if not, ask for clarification. Fans in Cleveland on the radio are giving Stefanski a hard time for taking Hunt out for Felton on critical third downs. Wondering your thoughts. Well, may not know why. That's typical for fans and radio folks. Do you know? Did Hunt ask to be taken out? Was he dinged up? Was he gassed? All those things are things that you're not going to know and you're not going to get the answer to accurately. There's a reason why he did it. Don't know why he did it. Everything's subject to criticism if it doesn't work. Rock says Harbaugh, to his credit, has gone back to bow blockhead ball. That is Michigan identifying. I like it. I think that's their best path chance for success. Seemed like Gaddis is just a beard for him. Thoughts? Um, I don't. I don't know that Michigan's gone and done anything other than they played pretty good. If nothing else, they've just won, but they haven't beaten a really good team yet. And I would pump the brakes on how good Michigan is. Yeah, that's always what Harbaugh wants to do. I can tell you that they're not good enough without a passing game. You can't win. Look, it's one thing to be your Wisconsin boys. If they can do that and be successful, that's and Michigan, they expect to be great. They're not going to be great if they can't throw the football. So, I just don't think that, I'm hoping that Jim figures it out. I like the concept of being physical, but if you don't get a playmaker at quarterback, you don't make plays in the passing game, you're going to be a good team that goes to a bowl game, and that's what Michigan has been. But that's the reason why a lot of people want him fired. There's nothing he's done thus far this year in looking at film that says, "Oh yeah, they figured it out now." Oh, they're going to no. I don't see it. Now, here's the one thing: the conference is down. I still don't think they beat Ohio State, but Ohio State continues to struggle and have some dysfunction that's going on now. It's not Michigan's catching them. If Ohio State comes back to the pack, if other teams come back to the pack, sure, anything can happen, but I don't think it's because they're getting better. Wonder how long it takes you to break down a game film. Depends on if I'm doing a quick view to do all these games, it takes a good 2.5 hours to do it. But if I'm looking in more detail, like every player on every play, it takes about 8.5 hours to do it correctly. Um, of all the coaches you have ever interacted with, did any of them hate the end zone fade route and think it is a waste? Look, there's nothing wrong with the end zone fade route. It depends on how you play it, how you run it. An end zone fade route. What's your personnel? I mean, how good is your talent to run it? If you got a big receiver, the key to the end zone fade route is to be able to press the corner inside and not let him cross face to create separation between the defender and the end zone. And if you've got a guy that's got, do I want to run that fade route with maybe the receiver that can't be physical on the ball or can't go up and take the ball away in a 50-50 ball? No, probably not. But you run that and you've got separation between the defender and the boundary, and you got a guy that wins 50-50 balls, it's the safest route to throw. It's not going to get intercepted. And again, you can't just say, well, I hate the fade route. What down you talking about? What other options? On an early down, a second down in the end zone? Are you kidding me? With a good receiver? What's a better play? That's a free play. You'll win a 50-50 ball. You might get a high percentage chance if you don't if it's not completed, then it's an interference and you got the ball on the gut. I mean, it's one of the best plays you can have in the right situation. You can't just say, well, that play is a good play or a bad play. It depends on situation, how well you execute it, and who you can execute it with. What was your evaluation of Lorenzo White? Well, I had Lorenzo White on my team. Lorenzo was an outstanding back at Michigan State. He had great vision, had great pick and slide as an inside runner. Woodcheck King, when will Hugh Freeze get a P5 job? Hard to believe he hasn't already. Look, it would help. Didn't play well last week. Lost to Syracuse. And so I don't know. I mean, I think there's been enough time that people might be interested, but you know how people are, they're fickle. And I don't know, and I'm not talking about Luke Fickle. They are fickle, and without a signature win, do they buy in? Do they believe in? I think Hugh Freeze, look, is at least should get some face-to-face interviews. He's going to have to win an administration over. Jeff says, awesome show today. Who dat, Super Bowl or bust? Okay. Is OBJ good enough for end zone fade? Oh, good Lord, yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, it's not the end zone fades the be all to end all. Again, situation, where you want to run it. And I do think you want to have some other options. Here's the other thing, too, is it's a simple throw, but the protection's got to be there. And the receiver needs to win off the line of scrimmage. If he doesn't, you have to have a built-in look. And I know the most recent thing that people talked about, and I talked about it again, was the Auburn situation against Penn State. Well, that was an incorrect. That was a rub route, not a fade route. And the slot receiver is supposed to cross face of the defender, and he didn't. By the way, it was that and several other mistakes by the receiving corps that got Cornell Williams fired, even though he was an Auburn guy. Are you ready to take the Chiefs to the woodshed for the absurd playground circus? Can't take them seriously at this time. Look, I think they're a team that's becoming one that has a little bit of trouble finishing games. I think you have to be, my concern is, are they able to finish with the running game like they need to, or did they constantly need to put the ball up in the air with leads and get a bigger lead and get a bigger lead? And then with that, you have a few drops or a misplay here or a defended play there. And then all of a sudden, teams get back in games. I think you're putting it all on the quarterback. And I think it's one of the things that you lose with a lot of talent. You got to pay a lot of players. Now, I'm not ready to take them to the woodshed yet, but I do think they're vulnerable, maybe more vulnerable than in the past. We'll see. Man, you guys are great in the chat room. Rock always is rock solid, pardon the pun. Tony is so good himself. Jeff, really good, always brings a Woodshed King, always brings some insightful questions, thought-provoking. Kev, love Kev. Always loyal, bringing it there. So all of you guys, really, really appreciate it. Let's get into some of the keys this week. Let's take the big game. Let's take Alabama, Ole Miss. Look, what does Ole Miss do that causes Bama trouble? It's the offensive tempo and it's the running game. The running game is what makes that offense go. The success in the passing game is people having to overplay the run. So what they do is try to do a lot of different things. They do a lot of cross motions. They throw a lot of jet sweep, which is a lot of motion to make you thinking that the ball could go jet sweep. They don't know. They disguise with their cross motions where you don't know who's going to get the ball. You crash down. Quarterback may keep it. It could go to either two of the backs. So what they do is they litter you with all sorts of eye candy. Where's the ball? You can't look for the ball. You can't worry about the ball. You need to play your gap. You need to play your responsibility, and the ball will come to you. You will react to the ball once you play your gap. But when you start to look and chase for the ball, that's doing exactly what they want you to do. And then they get a good angle to block you, and it's 88 and out the gate, and they just gas you for 8 and 10 and 12 and get to the line of scrimmage. Then you got trouble. You've got to do a really good job of staying in your gap, fitting the run well, and you got to communicate and handle it yourself because you can't be looking to the sidelines because they're going to be quick with the snap, quick with their alignment. So you got to go in, ignore all the eye candy, and play your responsibility that you've been taught all week. Do that. Force them through the air. if you can defend their run effectively with your front seven, and you can play split safeties, you can force some narrow throwing windows that Matt Corral's going to have trouble with. But if you can't defend the run, then what they're going to do is they're going to hit you with the RPO game. And so they'll get you misaligned, and they're going to have guys wide open. And so you've got to be really patient. You've got to be really disciplined. Your defensive tackles have to have gap integrity. Your edge defenders are going to have to set the edge and crash it downward. But you have to rush to the heels of the offensive tackle and not get too far upfield. Because the quarterback can run it. Now you got an extra gap and you don't have him accounted for, then you got trouble. It's situational defense. It's discipline, gap, integral defenses, which you have to do here. The other side of the ball may decide the game. How well will Ole Miss play defensively? How much better are they defensively? Well, they're better than last year. They were awful last year. How much better? Will Alabama choose to try to run with them and play giddy up with them, fast break with them like last year and win that? Can they do that? Do they feel comfortable with that? Or do they try to slow it down a little bit? Not slow it down, but work 12 personnel, work tight ends, get first downs, grind it out, then take advantage of some big plays. Maybe get a big play, maybe get a lead. Force Ole Miss out of that run game, become pass first. Ole Miss is not the same. So intriguing, the strategical matchups. Watch Ole Miss on offense. Watch all the pre-snap movements and the looks, and try to focus on what Alabama's doing and how much they're getting distracted by that. And then whether Alabama has to bring a safety down to help with the run, or can they keep split safeties back? Then on the other side, how well can Alabama run the football against Ole Miss's defensive front? If Alabama is controlling the line of scrimmage against Ole Miss's defensive front, then they can control the game that way, limit Ole Miss's possessions that way, and have success. Some other games that are intriguing: Arkansas, Georgia. I am loving the challenge that Arkansas, the unique challenges that Arkansas can provide to Georgia. Georgia, I think, is quite a bit better than Arkansas. By comparison, quite a bit better than A&M. I think they win it, perhaps winning going away. Michigan, who Rock talked about, I think Michigan's a tad better than Wisconsin. But as I mentioned in the Big Ten show this week, I don't think there's a whole lot of difference. They look the same. With Michigan being a little bit better, but boy, they look the same. They look like the same team. The same strengths, the same weaknesses. Not anything overly special at Michigan that I see, but maybe it's enough to win this. I don't know. We'll see. I'm excited to see Texas and TCU. In the first window of games, Arkansas, Georgia, Michigan, Wisconsin, Texas, TCU's really exciting. Louisville, Wake Forest, Wake team playing really well. Tennessee, Missouri. Can anybody play defense here? Pitt, Georgia Tech, Minnesota, Purdue. In the second window, Cincinnati, Notre Dame. Actually, that kind of bleeds into part of the first window. Ole Miss, Alabama, of course. Oregon, Stanford out west. Oklahoma, Kansas State, we talked about. Ohio State, Rutgers. Nevada, Boise is a sneaky game in that second window. Third window, Florida, Kentucky. Mississippi State, A&M. Baylor, Oklahoma State, underrated game. Oklahoma State looks a little better than Baylor coming in, and they're at home. Indiana, Penn State. Can Michael Penix, looks like he's playing better. Can he do enough to cause some problems for Penn State? Can Penn State run the football better? They're throwing it well, not running it. They are the alter ego to the Wisconsins and the Michigans. BC, Clemson. Interesting. Northwestern, Nebraska, Western Kentucky, Michigan State. And then kind of that late window, 8 o'clock Central Time, Auburn, LSU, Arizona State, UCLA, Fresno State Quarterback's really good, playing really well against Hawaii. So we're going to break down all of these games. We'll have it all for you at LandryFootball.com, broken down by conference, and we put the group of 5 in one kind of conference group. So you'll get, like, for example, the Notre Dame game will be in we'll put it in the ACC. We'll put it in the group of 5. And then, of course, we've got them broken down by conference so you can catch all of them. We'll have the special feature games, Arkansas, Georgia, Ole Miss, Alabama, and then Cincinnati, Notre Dame, the feature games of the week. In the NFL, really intrigued by the Cardinals, Rams, Seahawks, Niners, Bucks, Patriots, and the Raiders, Chargers. We'll feature those games. We'll break down all the games for you. So check it out at LandryFootball.com. Tony asked, do you still think the Browns can take the division over the Ravens? Yes. It's early. Got a ways to go. I don't think the Bengals are going to be a factor. I would say that it looks like a 2-team race. The Steelers are in trouble, but don't count them out for dead yet. But I think they're in trouble. Right now they're playing poorly. It's not sustainable with the Bengals. But the Steelers are going to get some of those guys back healthy. And so they're going to play a little bit better going forward. But yeah, no, I absolutely think they can be in that race. I think the Ravens will be as well. In it, yes. Look, I don't know if they're going to win it, Tony, but I think they're going to be in it. Let's see how healthy they stay, how much they develop. Those are all integral in there. So, Rock Westwell says Belichick never reveals anything, but what do you think he feels about Brady's last year and this game? Well, look, I think he's look, there's an ego there. He wants to have success without Brady. He wants to move forward and have success. Look, Brady made this move. Belichick didn't decide, I want to go away from Brady. It was Brady that said, I wanted to do it somewhere different. I feel like I should be treated different because I've been involved in winning Super Bowls. And Belichick is, look, treated this player with respect. He got input from Brady, but he's not going to compromise how he runs a football team for one player. You do that, then the next guy that has a big game thinks he can do this and do that. And Brady just felt like I'd like to go do something somewhere else. I'd like to have a little bit more fun. So he did it. It's working for him. He picked a good team. It's not like he went to the Detroit Lions or the Jacksonville Jaguars and put them on the Super Bowl map. He took a good team, and he was the difference, but they're a good team around him. Belichick wants to win. He wants to win without Brady, just like Brady's won without him. Don't think of it for a second. And just like you didn't ask this, but I'll mention, don't think that Lane Kiffin would like to stick it to Nick Saban and win this. And don't think Nick Saban would be pissed off royally if anybody beats him. But if the first former assistant to beat him is Lane Kiffin, that's probably the worst scenario for Nick Saban. It would tick him off big time. You never get him to admit it. But yeah, knowing those guys, that's exactly how I think they're seeing it. Hey, folks, awesome job in the chat room. Spread the word. Let's get more people involved. Let's get more people, if you would, help me to get them over to LandryFootball.com. Get involved on the website. And look, the best way you can help us is to check out our great sponsors. BetDSI.com. Check them out. Check them out. Let them know that you heard it right here. Use that code and let them know, hey, I heard you all over the Landry Football Podcast. Whatever. That helps us. That's the way you can support what we do. We appreciate it. We love you all for it. Look, we've got a special edition. Our Thursday edition of SEC Football and Beyond. Due to a scheduling conflict, we're going to do it at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning Central Time. SEC Football and Beyond. We're going to break down Alabama, Ole Miss a little bit more, all the SEC games, talk everything SEC, everything outside. So we'll do that. I'm curious to see what type of response we get early in the morning. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. See you over at LandryFootball.com. Sign up for Landry Football Podcast channel. Sign up for the Chris Landry Football Twitch channel. Sign up for LandryFootball.com. Do that for us. patronize our sponsors. We really appreciate it. We love you. Have a great evening, everybody. Talk soon.